Welcome to the webinar on the F words in childhood disability. Today we will speak about the future. My name is Jan Willem Gorter. I'm a professor of pediatrics at McMaster University and I hold the Scotiabank Chair in Child Health Research. I'm also the director of CanChild Center for Childhood Disability Research. This is one of 7 webinars on the F words in childhood disability. These webinars describe how the F words can be used with children from 0 to 6 years old. The F words provide a broad, strength-based approach to child development and are based on the World Health Organization's International Classification of Functioning, Disability and Health, the ICF framework. If you want to learn more about the F words, read Dr. Rosenbaum's and Dr. Gorter's 2011 paper titled The F words in Childhood Disability. I swear this is how we should think. So let's have a closer look at the ICF framework and where the F word future fits in the ICF framework. You see on top the health condition, you also see the other F words, fitness, function, friendships, family factors and fun. Future is not embedded in the F words or the ICF framework, so we placed it underneath. It's an arrow indicating that there's a process over time, thinking about a child growing up, becoming an adolescent, and then eventually an adult. Let's talk a little bit about the future. The future is what child development is all about. All children are in a constant state of becoming. Today is a prelude for tomorrow. So it's important to know that what children can do today is equally important for what they can do in the future. It's always important to think about the future in a positive way, right from the start. Let's have a closer look at the future. I want to show you this model that's called the Life Course Developmental Trajectories. This model was developed by Neil Halfon in the United States and then adopted by Dr. Palisano and colleagues at CanChild for children with disabilities and chronic health conditions. You can see we're taking a life course approach, thinking of pre-birth to childhood, to adolescence, into adulthood, and even into aging. You also see that the developmental trajectories are not a linear development. There are different sort of curves, so to speak, how children develop. You also see that there are different factors that can influence the development. That can be in the person, him or herself, but it's also equally important to look at environmental factors influencing development. So what does a life course approach mean to service providers? I think service providers also working with young children and families need to take a life course approach. Taking a life course approach means that you think about context. That can be the social context, that can be a physical context, but also think of the legislative context. Also thinking of a life course approach is thinking in terms of phases. So children growing from preschool into school age, from school into high school, out of high school into adulthood. And think of all the transitions between the phases. So it's really thinking ahead and thinking of the future, what's coming next. For service providers, it's important to think about strategies that can eliminate barriers to promote capacity of the young child. So let's have a closer look at the strategies a service provider can do to build the child's capacity. First, it is very important to take a strength-based approach, thinking about a child's participation in the future. We also should encourage participation in activities to help discover interests. Another way of thinking and a good strategy is to plan goals for the future and make the child center of that process, setting goals for the future. Never underestimate a child's ability. Children are competent and capable. So as a parent and caregiver, you have your own goals and aspirations for the future for your child. You want them to succeed, to finish school, to get a job, and to be part of society. It's very important to foster your child's hopes and dreams, to talk about the future with your child, and to encourage them to express their own dreams and plans for the future. It helps to build a child's confidence and self-esteem. It also encourages a child to make better decisions that align with their future goals. So here are some fun ways to think about goal setting and future planning in a relaxed and enjoyable way. You can make a vision board. You can make a wheel of fortune with different categories, for example, education. And you can let your child think of goals for each. You can also make a bowl of dreams. You can write down your dreams and aspirations and put them in the bowl. I want to talk a little bit about a conceptual developmental framework that we have developed at CanChild that I think is important to understand to better help children grow up and to support them. So let's have a closer look at this developmental framework. On the left hand side you see two circles. You see the person, a circle with the person, and you see the circle with the environment. And you see also that there is overlap between the circles, and that is very important, the person and environment interactions. Then on the right hand side you see the outcomes. So that are the future goals that we spoke about earlier in this presentation. So how can we optimize person and environment interactions to achieve the best outcomes possible? So for that we need to look at the funnel, and at the core of that are the relationships. So we know from the literature that children who develop positive relationships early on, at school, at home, and in the community, have better outcomes in the long term. It is essential for everything else that can happen. The second layer are the opportunities. So let's think about what we can do to provide opportunities for children to grow, to learn, to have fun, to develop friendships. All the efforts can come into the opportunities part. And then there is the experiences, the outer layer. So children who have positive experience early on, for example in play with other children, doing fun activities with the family, have better outcomes in the long term. So I think every time when we think about what we can do to influence the process and making sure that children develop the best future possible, I'll go back to this developmental framework, the relationships, the opportunities, and the experiences. We spoke about different phases that a child can go through in the developmental trajectories, and the transitions between the phases. And a major transition that occurs for children ages 0 to 6 years is moving from preschool or daycare into the public school system, kindergarten. That can be a very stressful time for families. That can be stressful for all families, but particularly stressful for families who have children with a disability. Some stressors include questions like, what will the attitude be of the school towards my child? And will other children accept my child? So it goes back to the developmental framework I showed you, that at the core you have relationships in preschool and in daycare, and then suddenly you have to develop those new relationships in school. So think about it when you prepare for a transition into school. So here are some examples of developmental goals at the preschool level. Think about developing and establishing self-confidence, listening and following directions, playing cooperatively with other children, language goals, cognitive goals, physical goals, toileting, just to name a few. And these goals may be big for young children, so it's important to break them down to baby steps and really develop that confidence and providing them with the opportunities to learn so that they can ultimately achieve those goals. So one tool we have developed is the Epworth Goal Sheet, and you can personalize it for your child. So this will be your child's Epworth Goal Sheet. You put his or her name and the date, and then you use this form to write down one goal for each F word: family, function, fun, fitness, friends, and future. It's also important to think about why that goal is important to you and or your child. It's important that everyone can work towards the same goal at home, in your family, in therapy, at school, and in the community. You can download this F-word goal sheet from the CanChild website, and on the slide you see the link to the F-word goal sheet. So this brings me to the end of the webinar on the F-word, the future. The future is not something that lies ahead of us, it's today. So let's start today what we can do to build the best future possible for your child. This is the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for listening.